How do you restrict the movement of your opponent's knights? Have you ever faced a knight that seems to hop around the board, causing chaos? Today, we will discuss how to restrict the movement of your opponent's knights, making your game more strategic. Knights have a unique way of moving in an L shape, which allows them to jump over other pieces. This mobility can be a real challenge, but there are effective ways to limit their options. First, controlling key squares is essential. Knights thrive on specific squares, so if you can occupy or control those squares with your own pieces, you can block their movement. For instance, placing a bishop or pawn on squares that the knight wants to jump to can significantly reduce its activity. Next, consider using pawns to create barriers. Pawns can form a chain or blockade that limits the knight's reach. Since knights cannot jump over their own pawns, well-placed pawns can effectively confine a knight, especially in the center of the board where it is most powerful. Another strategy involves exploiting color complexes. Knights alternate between light and dark squares with each move. By controlling squares of one color with your bishops or pawns, you can force the knight to operate on fewer safe squares. For example, if you have a bishop on dark squares, it can restrict a knight that must move on light squares. Prophylactic moves are also very effective. These are moves that anticipate your opponent's knight maneuvers. By pushing pawns or repositioning your pieces to cut off the knight's preferred squares, you can force it into less active positions. Maneuvering your pieces to restrict your opponent's knights is another tactic. Place your bishops, rooks, or queen on squares that control the knight's target squares. A bishop positioned to squares away from a knight can limit its movement options considerably. Forcing knights to the edges or corners of the board is a smart move. Knights are less effective on the edges because they control fewer squares. By strategically pushing or luring your opponent's knight away from the center, you can reduce its influence on the game. Creating knight traps can also be a winning strategy. Since knights have a limited set of moves and must alternate square colors, you can sometimes trap a knight by controlling all its escape squares. This can lead to winning material, as the knight becomes stuck or forced into unfavorable exchanges. Lastly, using your own knights to challenge your opponent's knights can be beneficial. Placing your knight on strong squares that contest or block the opponent's knight can restrict their mobility. This can also lead to exchanges that favor you if your knight is better positioned. In summary, restricting your opponent's knights involves controlling the squares they need to move to, using pawns and pieces to block their paths, and applying strategic moves to limit their activity. By mastering these techniques, you can gain a positional advantage and neutralize potential threats from your opponent's knights.